So hello everybody, welcome to the Quant Awards 2023 information webinar. My name is Alejandro Iniesta, I'm a CFA charter holder and I represent CFA Society France. Today, other three representatives from three CFA societies will join me in this webinar. Bob Jansen from CFA Society Netherlands, Erlend Fredriksen from CFA Society Norway, and Thomas Plunkett from CFA Society Ireland. During this webinar that is being recorded so that other students can also benefit from it, you will be able to write the questions on the Q&A section, but we will address all questions at the end of the webinar. Just be aware that you can write them at whenever you feel that you have a question, but we will address them at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce what we're going to see today together for the next 30 minutes or so. We will go through what the Quant Awards are, just in case some of you are not registered still for this competition. Then we will see together the timeline and the main milestones, i.e. when you have to do what. Then we will go through the format guidelines and the submission, followed by the judging, which is a question that many of you students might have. Is it how do you judge the competition? Who wins? We will go through afterwards it's something completely new for this year's edition. It's the mentoring so that we can help you write your papers. And then we will go through some examples of past winners and past papers. And at the end of the webinar, as I said before, we will take all your questions. Without further ado, I give the floor to Bob Jansen, who will go through the Quant Awards in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to explain to you what the Quant Awards is all about. It is a competition for students, just like yourselves. It can be about your thesis. It doesn't have to be. It might be any research you have done yourself, but as a student or maybe as an intern. It needs to be about quantitative finance, of course. But I think that speaks for itself. But it's important to notice that you don't need to be a CFA member. You don't have to be enrolled into the program. It is open for every student that wants to participate. So if you think you have a very strong research done and you would like to participate, you're more than welcome to do so. The current edition of the awards are organized by the Society from France, Norway, Ireland, and the Netherlands. So it's quite a European affair. And we see students from all over Europe participating. Also some students from Germany and Belgium, for example. But of course, we hope to see as many students as possible. About the research. So if you're writing a thesis, I think as most of you will do, it tends to be quite long, maybe 30 pages or more. For this research, for this paper, it's very important to summarize it a bit and also focus on the practical applications of your research. So whilst it is very interesting to really go into the math, you need to make it a bit more short. And then the judges tend to be from business, so they work for asset managers or similar companies. And yeah, they really like to see the practical applications. And if they think it's a very interesting research, they are also interested in the more theoretical grounding, of course. But for the awards, it's important just to be concise and focus on the practicalities. Next slide, please. So from now on, the timelines look as shown on the slide. You still have almost 5 weeks to register for the Quant Awards. So the 30th of June is the deadline. And then you have until the 31st of August to complete your paper. After that, there will be a judging round. The judging will be anonymously done because, well, there might be, of course, a bias. If the judge sees someone from the Netherlands, he might think, okay, I'm also Dutch, so this is a good paper. So we try to really make it as unbiased as possible. So that's also the reason that every paper is graded by 2 judges, and we attempt to normalize the grades. So of course, different judges give different grades. Some might give high grades, or they give lower grades, and we don't want to hinder people that have a good paper, but maybe a more stringent judge. After that, the best papers are selected, the 6 best papers, and then the final judge will select the 3 winners. And then on the right-hand side, you see the prizes, which are, I think, quite nice. So for the first prize, it's 2,000 euros, second 1,000, and the third 500 euros. But what's also included is travel and accommodations to the award ceremony, which will be organized either in Amsterdam, Oslo, Paris, or Dublin, wherever the winner comes from. So then there will be an award ceremony, there will be a dinner, there will be drinks, there will be a small party, which I can attest to is very fun to do. And that's also included in the winnings. Of course, if you don't win, but still would like to come, you're also more than welcome. That was it for me. Next slide, please.
Yes, so this is the submission format guidelines. As Bob mentioned, candidates must send the reports before the 31st of August to quantawards@cfafrance.org. Here it is important that the last submission date is the 31st of August, so you can send it up until midnight. The report must naturally be written in English. It needs to be understood by all judges, and since all judges are from different countries, it must be written in the most universally known language. It should be 5 to 7 pages long, excluding appendices. The appendices can be as long as you like, but I don't think you need like 100 pages on the appendices there. The cover page contains only the title and not the candidate or university name, and that is obviously to make the written report anonymous, so that the judge does not know where you come from. The report itself is a PDF file and must be named as the following. It needs to be named Quant Awards, candidate name, and university name. And then here it is important to know that the judge will not receive the file. The judge will receive the report. He or she won't see the candidate name or the university name. So if you go to the next slide, please. Again, they are judged anonymously, and that's why it can contain only the title, the cover page, and only the title. The final mark is a weighted average of 4 criteria, marked from 1 to 10. The first one, which counts 30%, is applicability and relevance, how applicable and relevant it is to the field of finance. The innovation is 30%, that's how original the work is. Accuracy and completeness, how well it follows through, is 30%. And presentation is 10%. And here it's not, it's very hard to convey any presentation skills on a written paper, but here it is basically the layout or how you present your written report. All marks are judged anonymously, all papers are judged by all reports are judged by 2 judges, and the marks are normalized to avoid any skew on the different strictness of the judges. And the 6 papers with the highest score makes it to the final, and there a super judge will determine the 3 winners to avoid judging biases. So next slide, please.
So thank you very much, Erlend. I'm going to try to convey as simply as possible what the mentoring, and this is a new thing for this year's edition, is. So by mentoring, we decided to contact a couple of very outstanding professionals in the quant area, but they're here for you. So you can request help, guidelines on, for example, how to choose a topic or the format. This means that you can, during the registration period up until the beginning of the papers, you can submit your questions to Quant Awards mentoring@cfafrance.org. We will, by the way, share the presentation, so you will have all this information in written form. But the idea is to help you before you register, before you submit the paper, excuse me, but you have to write the questions as clearly as possible. If the question is really complex, we will set a one-to-one mentoring session. This mentoring session will be organized, as I said, with a quant finance professional who is a volunteer and who's taking time to help you. And so we won't go over 1 hour, and you will only have one mentoring session. So now I'm going to explain the do's and don'ts, both for the students and for the mentors. So for the students, I know that you have a lot of things on your plate, you're preparing your exams, and on top of that, you might or might not submit a paper. So what we're asking here is, if you require mentoring, please only do that if you are fully committed to submitting a paper, because we don't want to lose our time and the mentor's time. Before you submit any questions, please try to prepare your questions thoroughly. So look at all you're not going to, we want to clarify topics, but we won't give you any questions or any ready responses that you might have been able to find by yourselves or contacting the professors. You have the full responsibility of the idea and the decision about the topic. So the mentor will not help you do that, but by asking smart questions, they will probably help you decide, for example, about a couple of topics, if that was your issue, for example. And this is a gentleman's competition, even if I don't think that this is a very nice way to say it, but it's the only way I can find to say this. What I mean here is that you will not request mentors for topics outside the scope of the competition. So mentors are not there to help you with job offers or with contacts or with any sort of internship opportunities. So that's very important. On the other hand, be aware that mentors also have guidelines to respect. So they're there to help you choose a topic, but they should remain objective, not favoring a topic. So you wouldn't expect a mentor, you won't find a mentor saying, okay, this is better. He will give you all the information to help you choose. One other thing that they won't be doing is they won't give any sort of feedback about the paper before the submission. So this sort of information, I think you could submit to your professor, who are there to help you along this. It's always a good idea to try to talk to your professors and ask them for help. And of course, mentors will not work with you alongside they won't work with you to draft or to write the paper. They're there just to help you choose or to help you, give you a couple of tips in order to help you along the process. So I hope it's clear. As I said, you can submit your questions during the registration phase, and then afterwards, we will organize a mentoring session if needed.
Okay, thank you, Alejandro, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to touch on some examples of the papers. I'm not going to go through each one individually. I suppose it's to give you a flavour of the diversity of topics that the students have submitted over the years, and we'll touch on some of the winners on the next slide. But you will note on this, again, as I said, current relevant topics are from social responsibility, racial discrimination, geopolitical risk, as well as your more standard quant topics. When you're looking at machine learning, you're looking at econometric topics as well. And I suppose to maybe summarize what some of the rest of the guys have gone through, that when you're submitting your paper, 5 to 7 pages, it's going to be industry and professionals grading it. They're not going to be university professors. You're not going to be submitting thesis level of detail. It's going to be a summary of your thesis, and summarized in maybe a more simplified version than you would usually submit on it. Again, the appendices are there to include your references as to, how you've arrived at your conclusions. But just, I suppose, to reiterate that it is kept not too in-depth level of difficulty and easy to read across the formatting. And again, that's for questions around this, that's what the mentoring is going to help accomplish as well. If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please, Alejandro. So these give the topics from the 2022, last year's winners, and 2021. And again, as you see, AI being a kind of hot topic at the moment. We're seeing movement between US equity markets and geopolitical risk. Again, very relevant in today's landscape. And then how manipulation in the fixes has decreased. So those were the top three last year, and across the CFA Ireland were the overall winners, with CFA France and CFA Holland coming in second and third. So, we have such a broad spectrum with students, and the winners coming from across the European, the European divide is only beneficial for the standard as well. And we also detailed then some of the 2021 winners from Utrecht. Again, it's reinforcement learning, collateralized debt obligation contracts, and who are socially responsible investors and machine learning approach. So again, just to reiterate on the diversity of the topics as well. And when you're going to choose topics, the guidance will be available from the mentors. Alejandro, if you would mind moving to the final slide, please.
Just one comment from us.
Yes.
Both Bob and yourself, you mentioned that the classic approach is for last year students that have already a thesis written or being written to submit the research in a more short form, like 5 pages. But I wanted to point out that the second prize from last year was actually an original research from a second year student, and that the third prize on the previous year, so in 2021, was actually an original research for a first year student. So although it's maybe harder, it's completely feasible for students to also submit the research and the paper, being a first year or even second year students.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alejandro, and a very good point to make on it as well, that not just thesis related, but if you're working through masters, if you're working through other years in college as well. And again, it goes back to, you don't need to be a CFA candidate to progress in the competition. And just on our final slide, to see you at the party. So the Winning Society will host the Quant Awards. So this is us back in March in Dublin, where we had the first and third place student over, and representatives from all the relevant CFA societies. So there is a budget available for your travel and accommodation. And as Bob mentioned earlier on, it will be Oslo, Amsterdam, Paris, or back to Dublin again. So I do wish you all very best of luck, and I'll hand it back to Alejandro ahead of any Q&A.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So now is the moment to ask the questions that you might have. If you don't have any questions, but you can always write them in the email that we will also include in this presentation. So not only questions related to the Quant Awards papers, those are for the mentoring address, but any other general questions. Okay, no questions. Okay, first question. I'll read it out loud, and then we will go through it. Is there a problem if your thesis that you use for the Quant Awards gets published in a scientific journal? This is the first time we get this question, but for me, it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I'd agree. I wouldn't see why it would be and Sonia's going to answer this question, but yeah.
I agreed, but of course it's good to check with the journal whether this is allowed. Sometimes they want priority. and then maybe you cannot give it to them because the Quant Awards will be before that, and maybe you can join next year. On the other hand, the paper you would submit is a lot shorter, containing probably less details than the journal article. So maybe you can even get away with it. But I think it's best to check with the journal. For us, it's not a problem at least.
It's a very good point. And the fun thing about this question is that you are actually seeing live how the decision process of the competition goes. So Erland, what would be your take on this question?
No, I agree. Check with the scientific journal whether it would be a problem. I think for us it's okay. But yeah, probably a bit briefer than it would have to be in a scientific journal.
Great. Yeah. I think that if the thesis is going to be published in a scientific journal, I think you have a good chance of being among the finalists. So do submit a paper. We're looking forward to contacting the scientific journal to see if there's an issue with your paper or not. Okay. So I'm not seeing any other questions coming through. So I'm guessing this was quite clear. Oh, new question. The paper has to be focused on the applicability of the subject as far as I understood. It has to be directed towards asset management. No, the answer is no. It doesn't have to be directed towards asset management. It has to be directed towards finance in general, which is a very broad subject, but not directly towards asset management. But just bear in mind that because you will be marked on applicability, if it's extremely theoretical, maybe you will get less marks on that because of the applicability criteria, but per se, it doesn't have to be related to investment management or asset management. Very good question so far. Any other questions? Okay, great. So I think that we got all the topics that we wanted to cover. Oh, great. Will there be another Q&A session like this when we'll be more involved in the writing process? Do you want to take this one, Bob, Thomas? Because
we hadn't scheduled one, so I suppose given the email address that if you do have questions specific to your paper or to your your submission, that it will be sent in today, and the email address, which is ourselves on the call, and then will be directed as appropriate to the mentor if needed. So I suppose that would be the Q&A. The Q&A service that will be there, but if there is interest in putting something in, I'm sure we can look at that as well.
Yeah, exactly. If we see that through the questions, we see that the same question is being asked by a lot of students, we might do another Q&A session. But I think that Thomas is spot on. Normally, we will get the questions and we will get back to you individually. And if it's a very complex question, we will set up a one-to-one meeting with a mentor so that we can help you with the paper. So another question is, I'm a grad student. Can I join this competition if I have previous professional working experience? I know that, Thomas, you answered that question, which was not far away from this one, not very far. Yeah, a couple of days ago.
We had a previous question on this. It depends if your professional experience is finance related, you're not eligible to enter. If it's just been on an intern basis, you are. But if it's been paid professional within a finance field, unfortunately, you're eligible for it.
Well, just one thing, you might be paid, but if it's an internship, it's okay.
Sorry, thank you for clarifying, Alejandro. Yeah.
The empirical results from analyzing datasets should be included in the paper, right? I think this is for Erlen because we discussed about the appendices.
I would say that yes, at least the summary of it in the appendices, for sure. But whether it should be in the actual written report, it depends. I would say it very much depends, because the result, like a brief summary of the results, might be included, but the longer version of these of the data set or whatever or like the I would say a longer version of it might be included in the appendix. I mean, that's basically up to you, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you need some data to sustain what you're writing about, then by all means include some of the data in the report, but anything that is long, you have to put it in the appendices because it will just eat up a lot of your 5 to 7 allotted pages. A new question, this is from the short video regarding the awards. Is there some research database platform made available to us? If yes, at what stage roughly? Thanks. So this is an excellent question because for last year's awards, we had FactSec that was actually providing a research and database platform. We are currently in discussions with them to see if they can provide it for this year as well. So this is still ongoing, but hopefully we will be able to include the access to the FactSec database for this year as well. Okay, maybe a lighter question for the end. Why do you personally take the time to organize something like this? I let all the others respond because I think that their answer will be much more pertinent than mine.
Well, from my side, to meet and volunteer with some great people across Europe, and for network building and those type of it's just slightly outside your professional. You're working enough, so as you say, this is a bit lighter, and it's a great group of people, and meeting the students and that as well. Yeah, it's my main motivation.
I think for Norway's part, it's basically just engaging with students, because students are potential for future charter holders as well. So and we'd like to get in touch with more students.
So very good points.
That's my motivation.
Yeah, I think that is also motivation for me, what Thomas and Erlen shared. I think an additional thing for me is to see the new ideas that students have. It's nice to see what they come up with, what kind of new developments are there, what's interesting to them. So it's always fun to see what they have produced at the end of the awards, to read the papers.
Actually, for me, it's because I'm paid to do this. So, because the difference between me and the 3 other people that are in the call is that I'm actually staff, but I started this competition when I was a volunteer. So the reason, there's 3 reasons. The first one is because I like working with other European societies. So it's a lot of fun to work from people from other societies. That's the first reason. The second reason is that I'm extremely interested in everything that has to do with quant, because I think that whatever you need to measure stuff, and you need to use the quant techniques applied to everything make a lot of sense. So I am drawn into quant naturally, I must say. And the third, and I completely agree with Bob, Thomas, and Erlen, is because you're in contact with the best quant students of Europe. And I've learned so much just reading the papers, being in contact with what interests students. You've seen that it has gone from VIX and volatility and options into the ESG area. And you've seen that before it was more econometry, and now it's more drifting into machine learning. So I think it's a very nice way to keep in contact with what is being done, like in the frontiers of asset management. And you guys, the public here, you're actually the future of finance. So I'd rather be in contact with the future CEOs of all these companies when you're young and you can remember us. That was a great question, I think, to end. So thank you very much to Bob, Thomas, and Erlen for their time. Also to Sonia, who's been working behind the scenes as always. We are hopeful that you will be submitting papers or registering if you were considering that you wanted to register. We will send an email with all the information so that you can act. And thank you very much for the time and your commitment for this wonderful competition.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.